Welcome back to a year of Final Fantasy. We're nearing the end of the month of Shiva, but before we get to the big finale, we're going to talk a little bit about Final Fantasy Unlimited. Final Fantasy Unlimited was an anime show developed and released in Japan in late 2001. Similar to the approach of the games, the anime wasn't really about any specific story or game, but it contained the elements of Final Fantasy that we all know today. Chocobos, summons, music motifs and themes, and even the art was reminiscent of Amano's work. So any kind of Final Fantasy thing that you could probably think of was referenced in this particular work. For those that don't know who Yoshitaka Amano is, he's the talent behind the art of the logo of the series, which has a very unique style. I'll get to that in a video a little later down the road. So the series was relatively well received in Japan, at least in the beginning. However, production stopped after 25 episodes were aired. Full disclosure, I haven't seen the entire run, but I do, or rather did, own the first few DVDs and still actually have the slipcase for them, which I actually used to store dice and other things right now. I have no idea where those DVDs actually went to. As I said before, the show had a 25 episode run, but it was clearly not their intention because there's a lot of plot threads that were left uncompleted and unanswered. Now for preparation, I actually did watch the first few of the initial episodes, so I'll talk a little bit about those and you can make the decision whether or not to check it out for yourself. A little bit about the show: it follows the children of I and U in their travels among the inner world subway, and actually they're getting to a place called Wonderland. I'm not completely sure about their idea of using Wonderland as the world for this particular series. I know Alice in Wonderland or Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is public domain, but I'm not sure if they just intended that as an homage or, as one of those coincidences. Anyway, as you can see in the video, the art is relatively older in style, but they splice in these CG graphics. Doesn't really hold up today in my opinion. It's slightly better than that Dragonlance movie, if any of you out there know what I'm talking about. The styles kind of clash because of that early CG animation with the traditional hand-drawn graphics. I like the hand-drawn stuff much better. Those two particular styles clashing, I am just not a fan of. As far as story goes, I guess they were trying to set up this whole mythical realm, but again, it only had 25 show run, so I think they may have taken pieces from this and actually transplanted it into games that we've actually seen in the past couple of years. One of the big things that I noticed was that they showed the Fibula Goddess, which is the same name as the Fibula Nova Chrysalis, which was the Final Fantasy 13 Type 0, then Final Fantasy Versus 13 sub-mythology. So I'm thinking that that may have got its start here. I cannot confirm that. As far as the voices go, I'm kind of a dub scrub. I like to listen to the show while I'm doing other things, so that's why I can't really get into subtitled episodes, even though I know they're better. So the voices, at least for little children, are they're pretty bad. I'm not a big fan. Despite the voices being bad, I actually do think a lot of World of Final Fantasy probably actually came from this general idea of this series. Why I think that is that the main character is a boy and his sister, which I don't know their exact age. I believe they're probably around 10 to 13 years old. I and you take a subway and end up in this crazy staircase to search for their parents, and hijinks ensue, and you know the drill. After playing World of Final Fantasy, you are a brother and a sister, and actually it's kind of like a real world, and then you go off into this world called Grimoire. It's sort of a fan service to Final Fantasy, and that is very, very much the vibe I get from this particular series. So that's why I think that this may have had something to do with the World of Final Fantasy game that just recently released. So the series isn't just god-awful, and if you're a hardcore Final Fantasy fan, you've probably seen it or decided not to long before you've run into this. But if you want to check it out, then you can find it on YouTube, at least most of the episodes. In fact, that's how I prepared for this. If you simply must have the hard copy version, I looked it up, and as again of January 2017, the collection itself runs pricey at about $60 US for the 3 DVDs together. Of course, you can buy them individually, and they're much cheaper. The project itself is quite old, so a lot of information and retail on it are pretty scarce. I'd say if you find it at a used DVD place, garage sale, flea market, whatever, for really cheap, then yeah, I would probably pick it up, if not just for collection purposes. One really interesting thing is that there are a ton of spin-off games and manga and all that kind of stuff that I'll do another video on later on, but it's just really weird to see see that this was probably supposed to be a very big franchise and they just ended it abruptly after 25 episodes. So that's about it for Final Fantasy Unlimited. Next time we're gonna look at the game that we've been waiting for. We're gonna take a look at Final Fantasy 1, the game that started it all.